Hey, welcome to the garage. I've got a little project this winter sitting behind me. It's my 59 B61 Mack. Put a 237 in it a few years ago. The old Triplex is well worn out. It was worn out 23 years ago when I bought the truck. But it's time to do something about it. So I got her jacked up and I'm going to get it out. It's going to be quite the ordeal with the space I got, but we'll give it a try. Let's take a quick walk. All right. As you can see, the stall is the same size as the truck. Not much working space, but luckily I'm a skinny guy. Anyhow, get walked around the other side. And we'll see what I got figured out. At least the best laid plan. Draining the tank, putting it in the other tank so I can drop the tank off of there. I already got the air start tank unhooked and off there. Working on cleaning up the floor. I have my trusty tranny jack that a new friend of mine let me borrow for the time being. So I have to do a little bit of finagling, make some brackets to cradle the transmission so it doesn't fall on me. But anyhow, once I get the fuel tank out of the way, there should be 3 or 4 feet of room to get it out from underneath the truck and squeeze it through this doorway. This, my 69, will get backed out of that stall, and I'll roll the transmission into this stall, and we'll go through that garage door and pick it up and take it over to the other garage on the other side of that wall. Yeah, over there. We'll take a quick look here. Anyhow, so the transmission will sit basically where the Harley's at. This stuff all go away. The bike will come up here and I'll have a nice big area to work on. Disregard that little fancy thing there. That goes on something else. I've got a jig built up for my engine crane to turn it into a jib crane on the back of my pickup. Hooks onto my receiver and straps onto the bed, and I think it'll be quite handy to pick that transmission up and get it moved over to this stall, and I'll be able to stand for it and get tearing into it. My first time, I printed off the manual from the old MacBook I've got. I can rebuild transmissions. I don't know why I can't rebuild this one. Anyhow, the truck's jacked up about 4 inches off ride height. Transmission's about 24, 25 inches. The jack's like 9. I need about 34 inches to get underneath the frame. And the frame was only at 30. So we've got her jacked up about 35. So it should slide out underneath there. There again, best laid plan. So anyhow, that's the gist of it. We'll get things cleaned up tomorrow, get some material on Monday to make a cradle on that transmission jack. Once I get that made, inside the truck's all torn out, shifters are already out of it. So it's not far from sliding out of there. So anyhow, we'll bring you back when it's out and ready to do something with. Thanks for watching. All right, welcome back to the garage. Little update today. Everything's ready to drop out of this thing. Transmission mounts, drive shaft, auxiliary shifter, exhaust, all the electrical, blah, blah, blah. Anyhow, we'll get you turned around here, show what's going on. So we got the drive shaft out of it. Electronic speedometer wire hanging there, that's out of there. I just Spent a good portion of the day getting the mounts off the side. Ties into the frame. Rubber bushings I replaced already a few years ago, but those bolts were not coming out. But 1-inch impact, 3/4 impact, some extensions, a long bar, anyhow, got them out. So now the transmission is ready to basically slide straight out once I get some bracketry figured out for this so the things don't fall on my head. So tomorrow, go get some steel. We'll make something work. But till then, we'll be back. Welcome back to the garage. A little update today. Got a few hours. I figure I'd come out here, start cutting up some material, get this platform built for this transmission jack. So got the bandsaw fired up and picked up some material yesterday, so I'll give you a shot here. Picked up 30 foot of 3x3 1/4-inch angle, cutting up pieces. Get these welded together. I'll bring you back when I got something. All right, so this is what it's gonna kind of look like. Transmission is only a foot or so wide, but it's about 2 foot tall. So, and it's round on the bottom. So the two longs will bolt down to the plate on the transmission jack. 4 uprights will run up along the sides of the transmission. Keep everything in control. Probably put a ratchet strap around everything just to keep it in place. But once I get it kind of tacked together and some holes drilled and everything ready to assemble, I'll bring you back again. Well, there it is. Off the jack and onto the stands. I use the same 3x3 1/4-inch angle. Made me a little stand. I can unbolt the rear box, work on the main box, get the flywheel housing off of it, take it all apart. I think it worked out pretty slick. Along with my cradle, that thing was rock solid. 4 3/8 bolts on each side. Those angles went up in through that slot right there, and it tied in right there in the corners of the back box. You couldn't wiggle this thing. So next thing, start taking that auxiliary shifter off, start getting the lids off of it, take a look what's inside. Man, I can't wait to get this thing hot tanked. 60 years of grime. Ugh, what a mess. You can see I had that auxiliary shifter off a few years ago. Put a few new pins in it, trying to tighten things up. Boy, it was loose. But just the main box, the bearings are so bad in it. The shafts are walking around. It won't stay in gear. It just needs help. So we're going to give it a shot. How bad could it be? Just a really, really, really heavy transmission. Anyhow, that's the update for today. We'll be back at it. All right, we're back at it. Had to excuse the furnace, it's making a little noise. We'll work past it, but gonna try to get this lids off of this thing, see what we can see. Anyhow, we'll give this a shot. And yeah, one-handed, yeah, this isn't gonna work too well. Be right back. All right, got the lids off. I went ahead and got the clutch housing off of it. We'll give you an idea why this thing was used a little too much when it was new. Anything on D-cell, you know, you had to hold the shifter pretty good, but it yeah, about 1/4 inch of play, and it should have Yeah, not that. So anyhow, main box needs bearings. So the back half's pretty tight. Shafts don't wobble around, and it never fell out of gear there. So anyhow, I'll get the nut off of the back, get the rear box off, and we'll dig into it deeper. But that's just a little update, show you what's going on. So anyhow, we'll check back. Okay, we're making headway. Got the back end off. Pretty painless. Just get the flange nut off. Some bolts. Slides right off of there. Front bearing. Typical, unbolt it. Pull it out the front. Of course, all 20 needle bearings fell out. Working on trying to get a couple of the front gears out of it. The book says that's how you do it. Yeah, well, they don't go past the cluster gears. So explain that one, book. Oh yeah, that little bearing brace on the front of there. Yeah, that little sliding clutch is supposed to touch that, and you're just supposed to knock them both off. Well, except look how small the race is, and look where the splines are for the sliding clutch. Yeah, nowhere near any of that. So explain that one, book. Anyhow, I'm going to call it a night. We'll pick up on it again tomorrow. See how we get. Just for posterity, it is a TRT 722. And those are the instructions I got. So anyhow, we'll start again tomorrow. Well, next step is complete. Got both shafts out of the compound. Shift rails, all that kind of stuff out of it. Clutch came out pretty easy. Slipped it out of the way once you get the shift fork unlatched. Main shaft, a little bit of heat on there and some wax with a 20 pounder. She slipped out of there. So, say, those bearings weren't bad. Nothing was wandering around or anything. So, this isn't going to be so hateful. This and the clutch housing, ready for a deep clean. So, tomorrow those will go to the shop and spend a few weeks getting degreased. We'll know what this thing will look like when it's clean. Still trying to figure this one out. Doesn't make a lot of sense going by the instructions. Got the rear bearing plate off and loose, and this basically kind of moves around a little bit, but it tells you to take fourth gear off of there. Well, it don't clear any of that stuff down there. So, okay, instructions. And first, it jammed up against the back of the case, so it can't go out any farther. I haven't quite figured out how this comes apart. If everything comes off the front, I haven't read any farther, but I do have the clip out of that. So this is loose. It slides back and forth. It's ready to come off. You just can't get it because the cluster gears are in the way. And that bearing inner race is supposed to slip off when you took the sliding clutch off of here. It's supposed to push that off. Well, it's a 1/2 inch, 3/8 of an inch difference in diameter. So I don't know what that was supposed to push on, but we can get that out once we got the shaft out of here. But it's just a little deceiving, I guess. So we'll, now that I got the back all done, I will start on this. So I did some cleaning on some other parts here. I'll walk over there. Oh yeah, here's a little bucket of hot tank parts. Now the clutch arm probably won't go there, but the rest of that grimy stuff will get tanked and cleaned up. So we'll go over and look at some clean stuff. I'll call this the cleaner pile of things. put them in my parts washer and gave them a rinse off, get the major sludge off. That's the front cluster shaft cap. That little ring is the compound bearing cap, retainer, bolts, input, clean that up. Bearing runs nice, but it'll get everything new. Bearing retainer, you couldn't even see what that thing was. Anyhow, a few of these will get sandblasted. Shift rods for the compound, they need blasted and painted. They'll get some more detail work, but at least you can touch them. You couldn't before, so anyhow, that's what we got going on. We'll check back again here later. Oh yeah, I forgot about the lids. Yeah, they're a mess. So I'll take that tomorrow and scrub it up along with the compound. There's my rear tail housing. That's been cleaned and painted, and I've put speedy sleeves on that flange a couple of times in the last 20 years trying to keep it from leaking. But my electronic speedometer conversion, original speedometer gear came in here, but it kept getting chewed up, so through a little bit of help of a friend, he got the speedometer and sent me a sending unit. I machined the tail housing for that. And gears around here somewhere. Don't know what I did with it. I made it. It's a reluctor wheel. It's floating around here somewhere. Anyhow, that's what's going on. We'll be back. All right, found my ring. Reluctor wheel I made at work. Needed to have 16 teeth for the count. Yeah, I know, one's not quite right, but it just has to see 16 pulses. So I made it the same width, basically the same diameter with a right hole size. Replaces the original speedometer gear on a Mack, and with a magnetic pickup, come down here and get it right off the edge. And oh, it's been in there, I don't know, 15, 17 years now or so. Speedometer's got, I don't know, 50-some thousand miles on it. So anyhow, another little piece I made. We'll come back. All right, update for a Saturday. I do have all those gears and sleeves off. Found out it's that center sleeve that's got everything in a bind. First gear just rides on the shaft. The slider and second gear rides there. And that's spline to the main shaft. And my guess is the main shaft's got a little tweak in it. Just enough that ain't coming off without a lot of force. Need to get a piece of all thread, a foot long, and these little 1-inch long threaded bolts and stacks of bushings and steel, and I ain't got enough hands to do all that. So get a piece of all thread, a couple of foot long pieces, and zip that thing right off of there. So it's good to have it figured out anyhow. A little bit of too much power through it. It's got that spline tweak. So decisions are going to have to be made. Do I continue? Do I change? Get pieces, parts, something different? Or do I just put something else in there? So I get some other pieces washed up here. I'll take you over there and show you that. All right, update. I got some all thread. Used it for jack rods. Was able to get the main shaft out of it. There's the sleeve that was causing all the problems. The other sleeve right there came right off. I thought maybe either the shaft is twisted or that's messed up. But if you grab this one, it drops right on there. Doesn't even bat an eye. You line it up. You're right on down there. So the shaft is not hurt. If you put this one on the way it's supposed to, it doesn't fit. You can fight with it, and it just doesn't want to go. But if you turn it around and you line the teeth up, it runs right down there to about, a half an inch or so. Right about the length of those lugs. And those lugs are what engages first gear. So, somewhere in the last 60 years, somebody put a load on this thing pretty hard. So, very fixable. Little grinding, polishing, whatever. And it'll go back together lickety-split like it's supposed to. So, now just to get the bearings off of the cluster and get it out of there and reverse idler and keep chipping away here. I'll finally get to maybe clean this mess up. So anyhow, we'll bring you back. Variety of nuts and bolts, clutch linkage, throwout arm. Yeah. It's not looking too new, but it was in there and it'll last probably as long as I drive it. This is the wheel that rides on the clutch linkage, and yeah, that hasn't turned in a long time, so likely be replacing that. And what else? Yeah, we got all that. Back box, gears are rinsed off, bearings, yada, yada, yada. Got the rear case, the main case, all cleaned up. Those two seals, yeah, they need replaced bad. That thing just puked grease constantly, so anyhow. Those will end up getting completely torn apart and gone through and cleaned up. I got them washed up enough to work on them because, yeah, you couldn't. And you go over here, flywheel housing, clutch housing, sorry. Got it all cleaned up. Nothing much to say or do with that. Rear box, washed up. All nice and clean. So, whatever we'll end up doing, that'll be ready to quick rinse and paint and put back together. So, all right, that's all I got for today. Once we figured out that main shaft, decisions will be made. So, we'll be back at you later. All right, today's update. I got the first bearing pushed off, and I found the reason why it had a 1/2 inch of lash. Yeah, it's a little worn out. The race, pretty much just as ugly. The other bearing looks like new for the most part. There's a stack of shims for the preload. That's the lock ring that keeps preload, which I had no idea. I was trying to figure that out. Once I figured that out, now I know what went wrong. And I think the whole reason behind this bearing failure was the fact that that oil hole was plugged shut by previous person, which you can see a little bit dark and ugly where that brass was riding, but that also oils this thrust surface where the lock ring is at, and it also probably feeds that bearing. So that rear bearing and the rear gear is housed in the compound box, so it's getting lube from that. So plus it does have an oil hole from the top that feeds oil into the bearing from splash, but you can see the race come right out of that. I'm hoping it didn't hurt the housing. I'm hoping it's just the bearing that got hot, because you can see a little dark. So it does kind of slide out of there. Hopefully it's just tweaked, and I get a new bearing, we'll measure that up, make sure it fits tight. Yeah, bead blasted a few things. Gonna get that thing dressed up. Actually, it's the other side. It's this side where the roughness was at, where it wouldn't fit on there. So dress that up. Throw out, linkage, pivot. Needs a new ball. Roller, anyhow. So now that we know what happened and the root cause of it all, we can fix this and get it back together. I still don't have the cluster shaft out. Let me walk over there and show you that. All right, I need to work up a puller to get those two bearings off so you can get that cluster shaft out of there. I got a sleeve that'll fit on there, then all thread, some jacks. Hopefully that pulls off of there relatively easy. They're really not hurt. They're pretty clean, but I want to get that out, clean it up, get that's where the magnet is at. It cleans the lube. It's pressurized, but it comes from splash, which rolls in here. The magnet gets the gunk out of it, and then it rolls through this hole, comes through here, and feeds into the input shaft where the pump's at, and runs it through the shaft, which oils all the gears. So, anyhow, need some more fine all thread. We'll get that apart, and it'll be just about ready to wash up. Then we'll start looking for bearings and try to get this thing back together. So that's the update for today. We'll be back. Well, next update, it took every bit of that puller to get them two bearings off. Could only do one at a time. I thought I could do two, but it wasn't budging it. Half-inch impact just beating its brains out. But we got them off. And counter shaft is out of the box. So it's time to clean this up a little bit, get it ready to take it off the stand. I need to get the filter plate taken off of there. Power takeoff cover plates, one on each side down there. You really don't feel the race, but there's pitting in it. So likely that's going to get replaced. I'm going to have to do a real evaluation on bearings and what I'm going to replace and what I'm not. You know, all in all, they don't look bad, but complete wash down. Check them out. Most of them can get replaced. The bearings on the main shaft, the one that was junk, priced it $120 bearing and race. So we getting a pair of those for the main shaft, I'll get the numbers off of these two, the number off of that big race there. There's just a straight roller in the front. Give it an eye on it. See what it looks like. Likely probably not hurt to worry about. Get a good washing and clean up on all this stuff. And what else? Got to decide what I'm going to do with first gear. If I'm going to make a bushing. Most likely will. These gears only have like 5 thousandths more clearance than the 5 that they're supposed to have, so they're not bad, but the other one having 25, I think I'm going to try to fix that. It ran before, but it needs to be better. So anyway, that's the update for now. We'll get this thing off the stand, gasket scraped off of it, get it ready to take it down to the shop, get it hot tanked so we can get it cleaned up, get it put back on the stand, and work on what bearings we're replacing and getting races and the bearing on the back of the cluster shaft. Run over here real quick. That's first gear. Yeah, that I gotta fix that. The rest of these, this is the double bearing on the back of the main shaft, which rides in that special double race on the back of the compound. I think it's pretty good. The bearings, I'll give it the once over. This one again isn't too bad. And on the back side of this is what rides on the other half of the double bearing that I just pulled off. So got a little bit of oil on it. Don't look real hateful, but if I can replace them, I think I will, just because. Yeah. I'm gonna say they're not horrible, but gonna fix it up the best I can. So, well, I'll bring you back when some more parts are cleaned up. Okay. Main shaft, first gear, sliding hub, fixed. Right on down there like she's supposed to. Barely see. Took a Dremel, ½ inch or so. You can see where it's just barely touching on the center of the tooth. I might just touch it again, but that area rides in this undercut, so it doesn't really make any difference, but it just needs to be able to slide on there. So anyhow, something else that's basically fixed. So I'm making a list of bearings and we'll continue on. So we'll be back again.